Welcome to the debut episode of CKN's favorite albums. I've done a video like this before entitled my top 25 albums of all time, which you can see the link somewhere around here. However, I like a whole hell of a lot more than just 25 albums, enough for them to be considered to be my favorites. So each week I want to talk with you guys about 3 or 4 of my favorite albums and share them with you. It may be something that you've heard of and love yourself. It may be something that you've never heard of and now want to explore. And I hope that with each week I have a bit of a theme going on. I certainly do with this first episode for you guys. I like to call it Floydian Dreams, considering I'm a big fan of Pink Floyd, and it seems like a lot of the music that I have kind of found after loving Pink Floyd and finding Pink Floyd has really had a Pink Floyd influence to it. So let's explore 3 albums and 1 song that has some sort of Pink Floyd tie. Let's get started. When many people cite their favorite Pink Floyd album, they usually go with ones such as Wish You Were Here, The Wall, or Dark Side of the Moon. But I always say Animals, principally because I feel that this is the strongest representation of Pink Floyd's progressive side, their progressive rock side. Something that's always been underscored and kind of assumed about the band, aside from their classic rock principles. This is the album that really showcases it the most. It's based loosely off of Animal Farm, and it's an album that has just 5 tracks. It's not a very long piece whatsoever. However, what's unique about this is that unlike the Shine On You Crazy Diamond movement from Wish You Were Here, this is an album where 2 tracks, the bookend tracks, Pigs on a Wing, Part 1 and Part 2, are actually the 2 shortest tracks on the album. The 3 tracks that encase it, Dogs, Sheep, and Pigs, 3 different ones, and it's out of order, but you get the point, are all very, very lengthy tracks, with Dogs being a 17-minute long monster of a song and easily one of my favorite Pink Floyd tracks of all time, whereas Sheep and Pigs, 3 different ones, clock in at about 10 minutes or so, respectively, themselves. This is an amazing album in the fact that it's able to take those individual ideas for the 3 different animals that are reflected inside the body of the album and really give each track enough individual prowess in order to really hold its own. But Dogs supersedes over all of the other tracks on this disc. It undulates to and fro, it has fantastic breaks, not to mention this is a song that feels like it was bona fide written as a progressive rock suite, which it clearly was, with this being a semi-conceptual album. This album, for me, is the quintessential Pink Floyd experience. You might try to sync up Dark Side of the Moon with The Wizard of Oz, or you might try to listen to The Wall while watching the movie, or watch the movie while, not listening to The Wall, I don't know. But for me, it was always Animals. Animals is the disc just showcases Pink Floyd at their heights and their most creative, and it's an album that is, of course, not as widely or highly regarded. It's probably why it's one of my favorites, because I like the weird ones, the odd ones out, and this one for Pink Floyd, at least in their 70s material, certainly is one. The Sky Moves Sideways. Probably my favorite Porcupine Tree album. Definitely one that bears a structure that's very similar to that of Pink Floyd. And this, of course, being Floydian Dreams, definitely is an album that makes sense. It reminds a lot of people of Wish You Were Here, considering it has an elongated portion of, one collective song as the bookends of the album. Now, the coolest part about this album is the debate on the track listing. The original track listing actually posed 6 tracks. However, whenever you get to the subsequent re-releases that occurred in the 2000s, there'll be 5 tracks on the original disc, and there'll be a second disc that's included that includes the track that is actually left out, which is Moon Loop, a coda, Stars Die, and a full 34-minute long version of The Sky Moves Sideways, which is the song that's broken into 2 parts on the main album. So you actually get a chance to hear the song in its entirety in one setting, as opposed to having to wait for the other songs on the album in order to go through. Lavish, progressive rock, this is fantastic, and also in the fact that it's experimentative as hell, and you have a lot of different ideas going on here, including the soft guitar work that you hear on a song such as The Moon Touches Your Shoulder, a song that's a little bit more manic and Dislocated Day, and just the overall atmosphere of The Sky Moves Sideways. 2 tracks on this disc are just phenomenal. This is one that moves and bends in different waves. It's one that doesn't necessarily need to even have a lot of lyricism in order for it to accomplish its goal. This is definitely not one that's for everybody. This is definitely not one for every Porcupine Tree fan, but damn if it's not one of my favorite albums of all time. We started with a Porcupine Tree album, we might as well go with a band that feels heavily influenced by them with The Dark Third by Pure Reason Revolution. This is an album that came out in 2006 and was their debut, and this one was extremely impressive for the English progressive rock/progressive metal scene. This is one that has a lot of influence in bands such as Pink Floyd and the aforementioned Porcupine Tree, but also love bands such as Nirvana. And all of those influences collectively make this a very mixed bag, one that definitely has a very epic feel to it, at times feels very cinematic, but definitely is able to bridge the gap between rock and metal. Take a listen to tracks such as Bullets Domine or The Bright Ambassadors of Morning in order to truly get the collective scope of this. These are moments where the band can easily kind of tame things down and take a very atmospheric approach toward the progressive rock formula and then just decide that they wish to rock out. Why is this a favorite of mine? Very, very simply. This album is able to combine the two things that make a great album and collectively operate very, very highly at both of those. One, there's a tremendous display of atmosphere here. No song really feels like it's being overdone or underdone. It just seems like everything is exactly where it needs to be at exactly the right time. The second reason is because the musicianship and the overall songwriting on this disc is so fluid and so well executed that it just flows so naturally from the very first track all the way to the very end, which is actually a reprise of The Bright Ambassadors of Morning. This is a great album. It's very, very difficult to find. This is not a band that got the recognition that they deserved for their efforts. However, it's one of my favorite albums, and I am hoping that I'm exposing it to a couple of you. We end the episode speaking about a song as opposed to an entire album. Now, Room 5 by Shadow Gallery is certainly going to end up in this series in some way, shape, or form sometime down the line. It's too good of an album to pass up and certainly is one of my favorites. However, we're interested in speaking only about one track from Mike Baker and Company. And these Pennsylvania-based progressive rock/progressive metal titans, veterans, did something very special for their special edition for Room 5. One of the tracks was a 30-minute long medley of Pink Floyd covers that spanned over 20 tracks, 30 minutes in length, and is absolutely insane, to the point where it actually includes Arjen Anthony Lucanson from Arion singing vocals for Sheep, which is one of the tracks that they do. Others are spanned throughout the entirety of their career, from songs from The Final Cut to tracks that you would hear on Ummagumma. So we have some real obscure gems in here. This 30-minute long masterpiece makes getting the special edition of Room 5 completely and totally worth it. The album itself, off of disc 1, is fantastic by itself. It's a sequel to a past concept album entitled Tyranny. However, with this second disc, and with Floydian memories being on this, to have 30 minutes worth of Pink Floyd covers, for a Pink Floyd fan such as myself, and hopefully some of you, it's absolute heaven. Listen to the way that the guitars undulate and really signal the passageway between tracks. Not to mention, also just marvel at how the hypnotic atmosphere can easily be taken over and be taken awash by heavy guitar work, and how the whole thing just seems to flow so seamlessly, so beautifully, where the 30 minutes seem like they're not even passing by all of that quickly. But then you wink and it's gone. Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. A couple of my favorite albums. We're going to be doing this at least once a week for the next, well, indefinite future. So please tell your friends, like and subscribe to the channel, definitely share around this video, that way we can make this a huge, huge deal. And I will see you guys next time here on Cover Killer Nation's favorite albums. I'll see you then.